Hello and welcome back to Decisive Squirrel Homestead. We don't actually live out in the country at all. We are in town. It's a small city, not really a tiny town, not a big city, kind of a suburb sort of situation. We only have a little less than an acre of land. So no one around us really does what we do to the scale that we do it. And a comment that we get very frequently is, that must be a lot of work. And it is a lot of work. It's kind of fun work. It feels a little more productive to do something that is directly supporting the family. We get outside and get our exercise in, which is great for physical and our mental health. So we don't mind the work, but it is a lot of work. And so we thought it might be fun to do a weekend in the life vlog sort of situation and just show you what we go through in a typical weekend. This is a little bit of a weird weekend. We are hitting 80 degrees almost every day. We have had our first shelter from the tornado situation, so it is fully spring where we're at, and that means that things are getting really busy. They're starting to ramp up. Josh is also going out of town for work, so I'm doing a little bit more of this on my own than I normally do. And we do have 3 kids and they do help a lot, but we give them the choice whether to show up on videos or not, and they generally choose not to. So you're not going to see them helping out most likely, but that's a little unusual. They do help us plant and harvest and can and all of that sort of thing. So let's see what we get up to this weekend. All right, so we filmed this the first week in April, and one of the first things I did was plant some strawberry starts. We had put in strawberry crowns earlier in the spring. Some of them did really good and some of them didn't, and so when some strawberry starts were available at the feed store, we went ahead and grabbed a bunch, and I was just filling in some holes to get those strawberries in the ground so they could start growing. The weed barrier keeps most of the weeds away, but there's still a few that we have to pick, so it's a good time to just pull the few that we see as we're moving along. Next up, I had peppers that needed to go in the ground, so I had started peppers from seed, and it was time to transplant those into the garden so that they could start growing. For some reason, our pepper seedlings don't really do very well as they're getting started, and I'm not sure if that's peppers in general or something that we're doing, but they really take off once we get them in the dirt, and so it was time for that to happen. You can see we're also working on the mowing back there a little bit. This was the first big mowing of the season, trying to get all of the weeds taken care of. Once the peppers were in the ground, I also went through and did a little bit of pruning on the tomatoes, but they didn't need a whole lot. And I planted a few squash plants. We've just been putting those in here and there at different times so that they're spread out through the season. This is our broody hen. Our kids actually call her Bro 2. They have the 3 Buff Orpingtons are named Colonel and the Bros, and this is Bro 2. She collects everybody's eggs, sits on all of them, and then refuses to get up. So you can nudge her and pick her up, push her out of the way, and she's just like, nope, I'm not giving up any eggs today. And when you do finally get her to move, most of the time she's on eggs that are definitely not hers. She lays brown eggs and she'll be on blue eggs a lot of times. But today it turned out she was putting up a fuss and refusing to move, and she didn't even have any eggs. There weren't any under her. But we needed to get her out of the coop anyway because it was time to clean out those shavings and put fresh shavings in. You can see the eggs were all next to her. She did not have any hidden under her at all. So that's how it goes sometimes. We have a chicken tractor that we move around the property, so the chickens are usually on fresh grass, but they do have this inside coop where they sleep at night and lay their eggs, and there are pine shavings in there, so every once in a while we have to clean out the old shavings and put new ones in so that they have nice fresh bedding in there. They can stay clean and dry and warm. So this was chicken coop cleaning day before Josh went out of town, because he does most of the chicken stuff. Yay, fresh bedding. You'll notice our chicken coop looks a little bit raggedy. That's because it's mostly built from reclaimed materials, so just things that we had laying around, scraps and stuff like that. But you know what? It works great and it was really cheap, so we don't really care too much what it looks like. Those chicken shavings go over to our compost area. We have 3 different piles going right now. So I found a little frog in the garden, just hanging out, enjoying the spring. Next up, we were working on putting in our corn patch. So we had put cardboard down on the grass for several weeks, maybe a couple months even, so that the grass would start to die back, and then we had some topsoil and compost delivered, and we spread those over the corn patch. And then it was time to put in weed barrier. We've really been liking the weed barrier in the main part of the garden, and so we decided to put that out in the corn patch too. We just roll that out, and then we use rebar connecting wire to make stakes to hold it down. It's a lot cheaper than buying regular weed barrier stakes, and it works fine for a season. It does eventually rust, but it's fine. So it's a bit of a job, especially when you're by yourself and it's windy. But we did get this weed barrier down. Actually ended up running out of weed barrier. We had more on order, but it hadn't arrived yet this day. But we went ahead and planted what we could. So Josh went through with a torch and burned holes in the weed barrier so that we had places to plant corn. And on this weekend, we were planting strawberry popcorn and glass gem corn. We did cover the other half of this and plant sweet corn. That'll be in another video. But sweet corn goes in a couple of weeks later than other corn. So these needed to get in the ground, and sweet corn had a little bit more time to wait. Once all of that was in, it needed a little bit of watering to get started. And then we went ahead and set up the sprinkler for a while to really get a good soaking in. Back in the garden, we worked on watering our beans that were just getting started, so they need some extra water from the top. And I went through and then made sure that all of the carrots were thinned out so that there's only 1 carrot per hole. that's kind of been an ongoing process. Some of the carrots are ahead of others, and so they're already thinned, but some of the younger ones needed to be thinned. So I was doing that while Josh was making sure that our beans and our new squash got watered. And then also some extra water on the peppers that just went in so that they can get a good start. And also on the new strawberries that just went in. Back inside, we also worked on trying out a new kind of like pound cake, but not quite pound cake, because butter's expensive, y'all. The price has gone up a lot, but we have all of these eggs to use, and so I decided to try this 4-ingredient lemon pound cake. So it's just a can of sweetened condensed milk, 3 eggs, some lemon juice, and then it's supposed to be self-rising flour, but I just made homemade self-rising flour, which is why I don't use it all, because I made up more than I needed. And that's all that went in that. It was actually pretty good. It's not quite pound cake, but it's good. And I got distracted because I was talking to the kids, and so I missed the loaf pan when I was pouring it in the loaf pan and had to start over. But we did get that in there, got that cooked up. Turned out surprisingly good. Definitely a keeper of a recipe. Made up a little bit of a glaze with powdered sugar and lemon juice, and everyone enjoyed that treat.